George Sink Injury Lawyers. If you've been hurt in the car or at work, call George Sink now at 803 all nines. Jack Beltry now along with me here. I kind of laid it all out, the things that were bad, the really no things that were good outside of maybe about 2 offensive plays on Saturday, and obviously Mike Shula being fired as the offensive coordinator on Sunday. But Jack, most importantly, how was your weekend in Oxford? How'd all that go?
Not too bad, I would say. I think the drive out there, it was a long one. It took me, I think I left yesterday around maybe like 11 a.m. Eastern time, and then didn't get home till about 10:30.
Right.
A lot of that had to do with traffic.
Okay.
I'll say that. The other thing was Mike Shula getting fired about 20, 30 minutes into my drive yesterday. Kind of threw everything into a wrench because, obviously at 5 o'clock, there was the teleconference with Shane Beamer, and the initial plan was, before everything transpired, okay, I'll listen in the car, I'll listen to what Beamer has to say, I'll ask a few questions, yada, 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 and then whenever I get home at a normal hour, I'll write and do my thing. Well, then Shula gets fired, which I think was the right move in my opinion.
Sure.
I think I'm overdue. And then I'm sitting at a Chevron gas station a little bit outside of Atlanta for about 2 hours doing work last night. So that delayed the whole process of getting home and whatnot. But yeah, man, doing good. Oxford was really cool. Good time out there. There's just, it's crazy how you're just driving and it's middle of nowhere. You see cotton fields and cows and horses, and then you just come upon a random college campus. It's the wildest thing. The Grove lived up to the hype. I would highly recommend getting out there. I know Chris Clark was out there this weekend. So
okay. We'll have to get some stories from him.
Oh, ran into him. I think it was like seeing a ghost for him when I fist bumped him in the middle of the Grove. But yeah, it was very cool. It was very cool. Sketch was out there. I don't know if you know who that is, Tyler. He's like a football Twitch streamer.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah.
Texan fan. He was out there.
Wow.
So that was completely random. And then the atmosphere was really good. There's I'm sure there's clips going around of those fans at Ole Miss saying some really nice things to the Carolina players. I have a video on my phone of them just chanting absurd things, and I'm just like, wow, this was that was crazy. But good time. South Carolina lost, but that's par for the course this season. And yeah, just a good atmosphere, good time at the game, and definitely would recommend a trip to Oxford if you're ever thinking about it.
So when we talk about Vaught Hemingway Stadium, we never really put it up there with the Death Valleys or the college stations and stuff like that. From an atmosphere standpoint, where does that kind of rank for you?
That's a good question. I'm glad you asked, because it's not on the same level as those stadiums you mentioned. It's not on the same level as Willie B. That's mainly because this is a much smaller stadium than anywhere in the SEC. However, it does get loud. They are into it. They all pretty much stayed the whole game. I would say you can't put it in the top 3.
Okay.
And I've not been to all the places. I've only been in the 10. I would say this is probably right now in the middle of the pack. I would say like around that 5-6 range.
Okay. I'd say probably about par for the course for what most people say about it. And again, you had a night atmosphere. The team's ranked in the top 10, so the fans' interest stops there. You had a game that was close, like as bad as the loss was, and I'll steal a line from Lige Campbell here. Spiritually, it felt like it was a bigger gap than 16 points, but, and here goes once again, Carolina's problem this year, it was a one-score game in the fourth quarter. You had the ball with opportunities to go down there and take the lead. You just couldn't capitalize.
No, that's the story of the year, man. It's insane at this point that it keeps happening. You've had leads in the fourth quarter twice this season, and in games that you've lost, I should reference, with the Missouri and Alabama game, and then you've had some one-score games like last 2 nights ago, and then a little bit earlier in the year against LSU. That was a close game. So I think it's been disappointing for South Carolina that they have not been able to finish games like we know they can in the past and have done before. I think it's definitely been most surprising to Shane Beamer when you ask him about it. But that's life in this conference sometimes. It's been a tough year, and I just don't see it getting much better considering there's another road game coming up against A&M in 2 weeks, a team that is far, far better than anything I've seen before out of them. So going to be a tough challenge, but hey, I think you're right. You're right about fan interest peaking a little bit now. I think people are going to be curious to see who is calling plays for South Carolina the rest of the way.
Well, that is one of the reasons why South Carolina struggled so much in the fourth quarter to close out these games is ineffectiveness on offense, which led to Mike Shula getting fired. Let you hear Shane Beamer's explanation from the teleconference last night and give our thoughts on what all went down and how we got to this point. Coming up next as the Extra Point rolls along. Tyler Head and Jack Belcher Reaction Monday. If you want to weigh in, Firehouse Subs text line 803-404-6100 as well as the AAA Heating and Air phone lines will advise you if you're going to call the AAA Heating and Air phone lines, do it during the break because that's when I actually have time to answer the phones because I'm producing as well. It is the Extra Point Reaction Monday here on The Game. It's all right here for our friends over at Twin Peaks. What a wild weekend of sports between football, the World Series, basketball's underway now, hockey's happening. Hopefully you got down there at some point this weekend over at Twin Peaks and checked it all out because they are your ultimate sports destination with TV as far as the eye can see to take in whatever sports content you want to watch on a day, a night, whenever. Twin Peaks has got you covered. Of course, they're always serving up delicious food as well from their scratch kitchen, and you can always kick back with a 29-degree draft beer and take in all that great sports action as well. And you don't have to wait for the weekend. They're serving up scratch food and supporting quality cocktails every day after dark. You can come out of the lodge and experience the best late night in the league today, tomorrow, or any other day of the week. Don't miss your chance to go hang out with our friends over at Twin Peaks. Welcome back in. Extra Point. Tyler Head, Jack Beltry with you on your Reaction Monday here on the game. Of course, Carolina falling to Ole Miss 30-14 on Saturday in Oxford to fall 3-6 on the year. But the story coming away from the weekend, of course, is the firing of Mike Shula after 10 games as South Carolina's offensive coordinator, dating back to the ball game last year and a time period where they never eclipsed more than 22 points in a single game. And, just it wasn't working, to say the least. And we knew this was probably coming. Again, I thought it would happen when the season ended, but Beamer decided to pull the trigger after the abysmal performance on Saturday. And last night on his teleconference, gave a little bit more explanation on how he came to the decision to fire Mike Shula.
Mike Shula is a fantastic football coach. Mike Shula is a fantastic person. His resume and all he's accomplished as a coach speaks for itself at the college level and the NFL level. I just made the decision that I made last December to promote him, and believed it was the right decision for a lot of reasons, as I spoke about at the time. And frankly, it just hasn't worked like I wanted it to work. We all have a hand in it, players and coaches. We all have to be better, but just did not like the way we were performing offensively through now 10 games, and felt like going forward short term and long term, this was a decision that I needed to make for the betterment of our program. I know no one wants to hear it. We're not far off. We have been in the fourth quarter of games against multiple teams this year that are college football playoff contenders, and we're right there. And I expect to have this team back in the mix for a college football playoff berth, just like we were last season. And I expect to have this team in that mix soon. It obviously won't be in 2025, but in order for us to get where we want to go, we need to elevate and take another step from an offensive standpoint. It's not just about this season. We haven't been consistent enough from an offensive standpoint the last few years, and there's another level of play that we can get to offensively.
I made a change last week, Jack. Sorry, I couldn't resist. Had to throw that out there. But look, we knew this was coming. Again, it never got off the ground, and it is understandable for Beamer to want to be patient with this because, again, he's the one that made the hire. He's the one that made the decision, and it didn't seem like a bad decision at the time, but it just never clicked, and it wasn't getting any better. You saw little glimpses in the way you threw the ball against Missouri, the way you ran the ball, against LSU was better. You scored the most points you had against Alabama now 2 weeks ago, but it just wasn't all coming together, and there was no signs that it was going to magically start happening simultaneously, and you had to make a change.
Too much inconsistency, I would say. Too much bad to justify keeping him the rest of the year, I would think. And I think this helps South Carolina in the fact that they'll have more time to get the OC hire right, because it's going to be critical. This will be Shane Beamer's fourth offensive coordinator hiring since he became the head coach back in 2020. I know 2021 was the first season, but he was hired in December of 2020. But the point is, this offense has just not been good. Like, go look at the stats, bottom of the SEC in almost all offensive major statistical categories, and the most important one is points per game when you're averaging under 20 points a game. And God, what's the stat I saw the other day? 350. they haven't even eclipsed 350 yards in a game.
They're the
only football game.
They're the only FBS team. There's 136 teams in the FBS, and they put the stat up at the beginning of the game on Saturday. They're the only team out of 136 to not have over 350 yards in a single game on offense this year.
And I think the signs have been there for, almost a full year now, Tyler. I just remember sitting at that bowl game in Orlando and watching this offense. And keep in mind, it was a few weeks after the Clemson game and that whole month of November where South Carolina was just firing on all cylinders.
Mm-hmm.
And you just watch the offense and you're like, these guys are not operating the same way. But you don't think too much of it because A, it's a bowl game, and B, you didn't have all your guys out there. So that didn't, like, if you had Rocket Sanders and some other guys like that out there, okay, sure. But it just felt like Lenore Sellers wasn't like the same as he was in the Clemson game, for instance. And it kind of just snowballed. Honestly, it carried over into the season, and it just never got better. It was an avalanche that just kept coming downhill, and eventually, at some point, I don't know how you stop an avalanche in real life. I don't think you do, but for Shane Beamer, he just said, "Look, enough's enough, and it's time to move on."
Yeah, and going back to last week, I think about the comments that Beamer made coming away from the Alabama game, where he said, yeah, we changed things and we cut these plays out of the playbook, and we simplified the offense again, which is something that seems to be happening almost every single year with Carolina offenses, unfortunately. And then Shula said the thing on Wednesday where he kind of contradicted that, and it just kind of like it left this funny feeling with me, like, okay, I really don't know what's going on here, who to believe, and all that kind of stuff. And clearly there was some kind of disconnect with the way that they were going about this process. And again, the offense, as many positives as we gave them coming away from the Alabama game, because that was probably their best overall offensive game, they reverted right back to the norm on Saturday against Ole Miss. And it's like, okay, well, maybe that Alabama game was just a flash in the pan, if nothing else. Is again, they just kind of went back to being who they were.
Here's the thing I think of with that game against Ole Miss this weekend. I don't even feel like the offense was like the plays. I don't think Mike was totally the issue. I honestly think it was more of Lenore Sellers and the players on the field just not getting the job done. The only play I really had an issue with was the 4th and 1 run call to the left with Matt Fuller. You have a 6'3", 240-pound bulldozer of a quarterback in the backfield. Why on God's green earth are you not running the ball with Lenore Sellers? The ball should be in his hands in those situations. I trust him, and I think the team trusts him more than anyone else in the field. But for some reason, you ran a play to the outside, and the blocking was not there. It was not there at all, so that didn't help. But that was probably the one qualm I had with the play calling. But, I mean, look, at some point, you had to just pull the plug. I mean, didn't matter. I mean, the offense still wasn't doing anything in this game. I mean, the points weren't being scored on the board, and that's ultimately what you're judged on. I mean, you can have a great week of practice, but if you're not scoring on Saturdays, it's tough to win.
Well, and it wasn't just the fact they didn't put the ball in Sellers' hands on that 4th and 1. It's the fact that it was a shotgun on 4th and 1 where Fuller got the ball 7 yards behind the line to gain, and he went horizontally instead of vertically.
Why are you going east to west? I mean, that's that one play sums it up how this tenure went in these 10 games. The offense was just not anywhere near good enough, and it's it's interesting because this is why I asked Shane Beamer after the game or on Sunday about will you look externally to hire your next OC, because keep in mind, I mean, Shula, I think, was the obvious choice when he was brought in to be the offensive coordinator because he was already in the system for a year. They wanted to keep the continuity with Sellers, but it just did not work out. And it's been a major critique for a lot of fans that they went the safe route, went in-house when they could have looked outside with some good options out there. Hopefully that's the route they take this time.
Yeah, we'll get to your thoughts on the AAA Heating Air phone lines. We'll start off with Zach, who's been holding on for a minute. Zach, appreciate your call. What's on your mind?
Hi, I've been a fan for a long time, since Lou Holtz, and, I think that Beamer might have just saved his job for a while with the firing of Shula. I want Beamer to succeed so bad, but I think that we need, especially with this carousel going on, I think we need to take advantage of it, start looking at some of these coordinators who aren't looking to do a quote-unquote pro-style kind of thing, but who just want to win and know how to win with what they have. Not necessarily know how to win, but know how to put up points with what they have on the field. Secondly, we really need to make a change, because if we don't start winning ball games with this carousel going on, there's a good chance we lose Clayton White. And, with Lenora Sellers, his mental game is probably so weird right now on the field that, when he sees somebody wide open, he's probably thinking, man, I don't even know what to do right here. I'm not used to this. I'm used to just having to run. So, his throws are a little wild, but, I'm really hoping that Beamer takes advantage of this carousel with all these head coaches being let go and, hopefully finds a coordinator in the mix who's young and hungry and a good recruiter and doesn't want to do this whole pro style thing and just wants to win with what they have on the field.
Appreciate the call there, Zach. 803-404-6400, and you're completely right on that. You need somebody to come in here and run a college type of offense, and I swear if Beamer hires another former NFL offensive coordinator, NFL assistant, I think this collective fan base, it's going to lose its ever-loving mind.
No, yeah. This had to be made, and Beamer did say yesterday it was 1,000,000,000% his decision, so I know some people probably were wondering, well, how much is this to Jeremiah Donati? Shane did come out yesterday and just said that it was his decision to make here, and I feel like it was the right time to do it. It probably should have happened a few weeks ago, but I'm glad it did now.
Yeah, and to the point that Zach made there about saving his job, if you tied yourself to the rock that was Mike Shula, you were going to go down with that ship. But Beamer's also not bought himself as much good grace anymore because he's shortened his leash, where this year's going to likely end up missing a bowl game. And then you go into next year in a prove-it type of season because this year ends up being lost after coming off a phenomenal year last year where you better get this hire right because then it's going to be your job they're coming for next.
That's the thing. It's the buyout's really a lot right now. It's almost $28 million, but I mean, look, hopefully things can get better the rest of the season here, but you're definitely right going into next year that seat is really going to be hot for him.
We'll get more of your thoughts on the AAA Heating and Air phone lines and the Firehouse Subs text line as Reaction Monday rolls along here on the Extra Point on the Game.
had a lot of frustrations. If you can give me a specific moment, I'll try and tell you.
It was right before the Harvard touchdown.
I don't remember. I mean, I'll have to look at it and watch the TV copy and analyze my emotions throughout the first half.
Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Belcher along with you on your reaction Monday here on the game. Coach Beamer on Saturday night after the 30-14 loss to Ole Miss discussing a moment that really stood out, and you guys were obviously in the stadium watching it there, so I'm not sure what your perspective on it was, but us watching on TV got a really good look at Shane Beamer losing his mind into the headset early in the third quarter before, really legitimately one play before, Nick Harver had that long touchdown catch that made it a 14-17 game at that point in time, where I don't know what the specific reason for his anger was. The play clock nearly ran out, and he did have to call a timeout. I'm assuming it was because of that. We can only assume it was Mike Shula that he was yelling from in the headset. I'm not a great lip reader, but I think I saw the words Mike come across his lips at some point. But frustration really boiled over. And again, thankfully the next play was a positive, but that was one of the very few for the night on offense for Carolina.
I think we need our version of like a John Boy lip reader where just can read lips to perfection and literally pick out what he's saying. I mean, yeah, I think he said something about Mike. I think he probably dropped an F-bomb or two. But yeah, it felt like it was probably time. I mean, right? It's overdue that you're moving on from Shula. And, he was asked yesterday, why not after the LSU game or any other point in the season? Why now? And, of course, after the LSU game, they fired Lonnie Teasley. And Shula definitely could have been gone right alongside Teasley in that moment. But, Shane, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, I'm paraphrasing here, probably didn't feel like it was the right time to do it at that moment. And, so there was still half a season left to play at that point. But now that as you're deep into this month of November that's starting now and you have 3 games to go, there's so much body of work to where it's like this offense has not made any progress, and that's the biggest issue.
Well, and going back to what we were talking about with Zach's call there a moment ago, there is layers to this because, again, if Beamer doesn't get the coordinator hire right and the offense is just as bad next year, well, guess what? They're going to be coming after Beamer's job because his seat's going to be really the warm. So, typically the firing process goes, all right, if one side of the ball is not working well, let's look at position coaches. They fired Lonnie Teasley because the offensive line was so bad, and again, you haven't really got all that much better with Sean Elliott. Not that we were expecting it to get leaps and bounds better, but still an issue there. And you say, okay, well, now we're just going to turn our attention to the offensive coordinator because he presides over this entire thing and make a move there. And again, if it doesn't get any better and we're in the same boat next year, then people look and say, okay, well, Coach Beamer, maybe you're the problem here. Again, we're not there yet, but that's kind of the natural progression of how these firings tend to go.
And I know there's a crowd out there that wants Shane Beamer fired this season. Let's just remember, Hugh Freeze just got fired at Auburn. There are 4 head coach openings in the SEC. I would say all of them are better than South Carolina right now if you went down that route. Not to mention, in the grander scheme of college football, you are definitely not at the top of the food chain when it comes to best job openings. You're going to be in the back of the line waiting to have an opportunity. And this just does not feel like the right year to do something so rash like that.
Yeah, and look, again, they're not going to fire Beamer. If he left and took another job, that'd be a different story, which I don't think is going to happen. If I'm betting right now, he's going to be your coach in 2026. But again, his seat's going to be significantly warmer compared to coming into this year because of how bad this season has been. Want to get more of your thoughts, 803-404-6100. Bill has been waiting on the AAA Heating and Air phone lines. Bill, appreciate your call. What's on your mind today?
Hey, guys, I got a quick question and a few points. Last year, listening to Shane Beamer, he kept saying we were in that slump, hey, we're a good football team, and he was right. I swear I haven't heard him say that this year, and I think that speaks volumes. He might be saying it, and I don't hear it. But getting back to it, I think we finally got an AD that has a set on him that's, I'm hoping, going to push Shane to do better. I think that's the problem Shane has. He's too loyal. He'll hire a coach, and he probably makes friends with them, and I'm sure they're great guys. But at the end of the day, you get paid to do a job, and when you're not performing, you should be fired. And I want to know, and I know it'll never come out, but is the AD finally putting a little pressure on him to make these changes? And I agree with your other fella there that said, now we're going to be stuck behind everybody trying to get an offensive coordinator. It's going to be a tough spot, but if you look at Shane's coaching record, not all the coaches over there in case somebody's listening, but you go look at their pedigree. That's not too impressive. Why can't we take the checkbook and go get a Kendall Browse, go get somebody that is proven to dial up these plays? I mean, it seems like we're going to go get some guy from Limestone University or whatever, and it's frustrating. But I guess my question is, does he have the funds there, or does he have the backing and the checkbook to go get these big names, and he's choosing not to?
All very good questions there. I'll start off with your first one when you're asking about, Beamer addressing this being a good team. And, that is a good point, because I think what we've heard from Beamer a lot this year in the press conferences, Jack, is, well, we're practicing well. Practice is going well. We're doing this good. We're doing that good during the week, and it's not translating over into the weekend. And look, he says, as I was going to say, he's got a belief in the team and belief in the team. But I guess the way he talks about the team maybe is a little bit different than the team that he had a year ago. Is that fair to say?
I think so, and he brought the point yesterday on the teleconference where he said, we're not far off from being right back in the college football playoff mix, and he talked about how they're not far off from hosting a playoff game at Willie B, which I know feels like a pipe dream right now, but in the future he believes it's very much possible. So, look, he has not outwardly just said, yeah, this is a great football team that we have, but I mean, you read between the lines. It's like, yeah, he believes this is still a good team.
And to Bill's other points there, I do think there's pressure, maybe not directly being said by Jeremiah Donati, but probably being felt by Shane Beamer. Like, hey, this isn't the guy that hired me. Like, I was a Ray Tanner hire. This is a new OC. This is a new athletic director that's come in and is not afraid to make moves and make things happen. Where I know I got to perform. And I'm sure that pressure is being felt by Shane Beamer. And to the money point that Bill also brought up, like the past two coordinators in Shula and Dow Loggins were making north of $1 million, which that's pretty competitive from a coordinator salary. So I don't think you're hurting for money in that regard. They just haven't been, and like Dow Loggins has obviously been the best of the three offensive coordinators that Shane Beamer's hired, but he wasn't like this Broyles Award as the best assistant in the country. He was fine. But nobody has really been this like out of the park hire at offense, and now 5 years with Beamer as head coach.
Considering how massive this hire is going to be, because it is one that if it does not go well, it could be the end of Shane Beamer at South Carolina. Considering that, and reading what my colleague Chris Clark over at GC, check it out, his story he posted this morning on Gamecock Central, wrote about basically, is there a financial backing? And it's not going to be like, from what Chris wrote, not going to be like $5 million pay for the highest paid OC in the country, but there's going to be support there to make sure they get this hire right. And they need to. They can't go down the cheap route. And like the caller said, look for somebody at like a Limestone University, which I don't even think exists anymore. But you're going to have to go out there, open up the checkbook. And I think this administration's willing to do that, because if Shane believes they're not that far off, then I'm sure the administration feels that same way.
Yeah, and again, that's the last thing people want to hear is we're not that far off. Kind of the same message that, Hugh Freeze was giving up to Saturday before he got fired. And again, maybe if you make the right hire, maybe you're not that far off. We'll have to see. But this year's definitely frustrating from a lot of fronts of what your expectations were and where you're at as of right now. We'll get to more of your thoughts coming up as Reaction Monday rolls along. Keep the calls and texts coming in as we continue on with the Extra Point here in the game. All right, welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Belcher along with you here on your Reaction Monday. Got a lot of you waiting on the phone lines. We'll try and squeeze in as many as we can to wrap up the hour and carry this over into hour number 2 as well. Want to hit some text as well. Robert weighs in on the Firehouse Subs text line and says, I knew that the bowl game last year was not a good sign. And let's go back to that for a moment. Because, of course, Dow Loggins had left to take the Appalachian State job, and it made perfect sense to have Mike Shula call the plays for the bowl game. We didn't know at that time if he was going to be the full-time offensive coordinator going forward. But, again, for somebody in your staff that had called plays before, it made sense for him to be, put in that role for that one game. And, yeah, it wasn't the best game from an offensive standpoint. Funny enough, that was their highest yardage output at 390 yards against Illinois. Scored 17 points. But something about Sellers just didn't look right in that game. And I think we all wrote it off as well. Illinois is dedicating a spy to him or multiple spies. They're just trying to take his legs away. Okay, but that ended up, unfortunately, kind of being the trend of the short-lived Shula era where we just didn't see Sellers.
It up because making him full-time OC without seeing what happened in that bowl, I think that probably would have changed a little bit of things. Maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but I feel like maybe it would have changed the decision to even think about promoting him to OC without just seeing, okay, let's see what he can do in this one game, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, and again, hindsight being 2020, it obviously was a sign of what was to come. More of your thoughts, AAA Heaney Air phone lines. Ray has been hanging on for a bit. Ray, appreciate the call as always. What's on your mind today, man?
Hey, good morning, Tyler. Good morning, Jack. Jack, I bet you're still kind of road worry, but give it to you for making a long drive like that and everything that went on yesterday. But, guys, I tell you, oh, goodness, this is the thing. This is where I'm at with Shane right now. Great guy, bust his butt. None of that stuff's denied, But this is the thing. You had Sellers, you had Nick Harbor, you had other pieces. Man, you could have gone out and got a fantastic OC last year, and you're coming off a 9-win season. So you know what an OC's thinking? Well, if I go here, what kind of longevity do I have? Last year, the longevity was there. That was a terrible hire. And this is what worries me. Like I said, when I put on my business hat, I'm Donati. Well, I'm looking at a coach that's getting ready to hire his 4th OC, and it just hasn't worked out. So if I'm Donati, I'm thinking, I've got to get involved here. And if I have to get involved to hire a coordinator, then what do I need my head coach there for? And I'll tell you guys, it's not going good right now. I think the Shane train is derailed. A lot of things going on there. That when we got the ball with 1 minute and 29 seconds left, that was absolutely the worst 2-minute offense I've ever seen in my life. You got a chance to put points on the board, and I know Shane's upset with Mike Shula on that, but he was right there, the headset on, his arms crossed. He could have called a timeout. That first play, guys, I think took 40-some seconds, which is crazy. But as a Gamecock fan, the only time a change is ever made around there is when there's national embarrassment. And it took those guys from ESPN to put up there. We haven't, gained 350 yards all year long, the only school. And they basically said our offense was trash or garbage about 6 times, but in a nice way. That's what it takes. And when Beamer said it was 1 millionth or 1 billionth percent his decision, it was his decision. But I kind of agree. I think it was Jack, or it might have been you, Tyler. Donati indirectly affected that because he knew he had to do it. If the AD from last year or the years past was here, everything is peachy. Everything's fine. But I think I'm getting at the point with Shane. It's like the little boy that cried wolf. Although I think Shane's a great person of character and all that, I think it's time to make a change. Now, I don't care if there's 20 coaches, 20 schools looking for coaches. We can't hire those kind of coaches anyway. We got to hire that guy who's one on the lower level. But it'll be interesting to see how the season goes. I'm still pulling for my Gamecocks, but
sure.
I think we're really at a doom and gloom situation. Thanks, guys.
Absolutely. Understand the frustration there, Ray. And we'll get into the malpractice at the end of the first half in a minute here. But I don't know if you got to watch the TV copy and hear Louis Riddick just eviscerate this offense on commentary, Jack.
I've read a little bit about it. Have not gotten the chance to watch it yet, but I have seen people post about it that it was not particularly good to hear.
He didn't pull any punches. He was brutally honest about just how awful it was. I would disgraceful. I forget what specific word he used, but it spoke volumes. And again, Louis Riddick is a straight shooter and somebody that's been at the top level of football and knows offense. So yeah, that probably, if it wasn't already a nail in the coffin, that might have been one final blow to the Mike Shula. Or not that Beamer heard that commentary, but it kind of put things on full display. We'll get more thoughts and continue to react to Mike Shula's firing and South Carolina falling to Ole Miss 30-14 to fall to 3-6 on the year as the Extra Point rolls into hour number 2 on your Reaction Monday here on The Game.
Everyone knows that AAA Heating and Air has the best HVAC replacement options in the Midlands with their guaranteed financing, no payments or interest for 12 months, and a 15-year parts and labor warranty. They're hard to beat when you need a new system. But did you know they also have great deals for repairs? That's right. If your system is broken and you're strapped for cash, AAA Heating and Air can help. They'll get your repairs done with payment options for up to 12 months and also no credit check required. That's right. So if you are the homeowner, all you need is a valid bank account. That's it. That's all you need. So don't wait. Call AAA Heating and Air today and get your comfort back on track. AAA Heating and Air, comfort you can trust.
All right, welcome back in. Hour number 2. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry here on your Reaction Monday. John, we'll get to you in just a second there, holding on the AAA Heating and Air phone lines. Today's focus has primarily been on Mike Shula being relieved of his offensive play calling duties after the 30-14 loss to Ole Miss on Saturday for Carolina, where outside of benefiting from a muffed punt that set you up with an extremely short field on your opening drive, and then one explosive play that Sellers was able to hit to Nick Harbor, offense really didn't do anything of note on Saturday in that 16-point loss, which felt like a whole lot more to the number 7 team in the country. We were just talking there in that last segment, Jack, about the conversation around Shula when he was hired officially as the offensive coordinator at the end of last year when Dow Loggins left for Appalachian State. Did anybody outside of like this bubble that from doing their job as a reporter have any thoughts on Shula being hired as Carolina's offensive coordinator? Like anybody outside of this Columbia bubble, did anybody share their thoughts with you on that?
I'm trying to think. I think Alabama fans that experienced Mike Shula were kind of like, oh, like when they saw midseason, right before the game a few weeks ago in Columbia that things were going pretty bad offensively. It's like, oh yeah, not really a surprise. So the signs were there, I think. But again, I mean, you looked at what he did with Cam Newton, and he worked with Josh Allen. It's like those are the quarterbacks that are much like Sellers, and he's got the keys to a really nice car. But I mean, man, I'm gonna be honest. I don't even think he ever got out of the garage without crashing it.
Well, and there's a difference between being an offensive coordinator and a quarterback's coach, because I think we attributed a lot of the success of Sellers a year ago to the fact that Shula was there overseeing him, right? Because it's different when you're just focusing on quarterback development as opposed to calling plays. And when, unfortunately, when you're having to do both, that doesn't seem to be the best thing for Mike Shula. I bring this question up because our guy, Dimitri Evandos, who fills in sometimes on our shows, Alabama grad, he was a student when Mike years later, they went 11-5 in 2017, a couple years before they've decided to let go of Ron Rivera. But outside of that one Super Bowl season, it really wasn't anything like, oh, wow, look at what Shula's doing with that Carolina offense. And again, his time as the Alabama head coach wasn't really all that special, save for one 10-win season. And look, his name probably got him a lot of places too, where, again, he has the pedigree of being Don Shula's son. And once he was no longer an offensive coordinator, bounced around from assistant role to assistant role, ended up, working with the Bills and Josh Allen and all that kind of stuff. But, outside of that one season, we didn't really know if he was a gifted offensive coordinator without just a freak athlete at quarterback.
You're right. And you have it's one thing if this offense is led by, let's say, Helinski or Bentley or one of these other quarterbacks that you just had during, the rougher years of South Carolina football. But, you had, a first-round talent in Lenore Sellers. And the fact that we even need to talk about that he's regressing right now is pretty bad, I would say. And I think that has a big reason to do with why Shane made the decision that he did, in that Lenoris is missing on some open throws, man. Like some throws that he should be hitting. And he's got the arm strength. We know that. But for whatever reason, it wasn't hitting. And look, maybe that's more on Lenoris than anybody. He's the one on the field throwing the ball after all. But, he just in general, ever since Mike took over, Lenoris has just never felt like the Lenoris we saw last year.
And the fear is that it's beyond repair at this point. And look, Lenore Sellers has the option to go to the NFL after this year. He's 3 years out of high school, has started 2 years. And when you look at all draft projections, he's still not the top overall quarterback, but still being thought of. I've never even remotely had to make a decision like he's going to have to make. That sounds a lot more enticing to me than risking falling further by coming back to college, and who knows who's going to be my offensive coordinator this time around.
The other thing I would say is, and I'm not sure what the deadline is for when you have to declare for the draft, but I would, if I'm him, I'm kind of interested in seeing who South Carolina hires as the OC because I'm going to be honest. I don't know if he's ready for the NFL. I don't see it there as a passer. Now, the comp that we commonly see is Anthony Richardson in Florida, and the fact that he didn't have as much of the sample size, nowhere near as what Sellers has in terms of games played, games started, that college level of experience of being a starting quarterback in the SEC. And he was the number 4 overall pick. So what's stopping Sellers from being a first-round pick as well? I mean, nothing really. I mean, the talent level's there. Teams are going to bite that bullet, of course, but I just don't see it there as a passer right now, and you need to throw the ball to make it in the NFL. So if I'm Lenoris, I'm weighing out all my options. I'm seeing what the coordinator situation becomes, and maybe that's enticing enough to come back for one more year.
Well, and I'm interested to see how Saturday's game affects people's perception of him because there were plenty of wide open guys, and Sellers couldn't hit the broad side of the barn for the most part on Saturday. Here's a stat that really jumps off the page at you. On throws 10 or more yards down the field, he was 2 of 12. One of those obviously being the touchdown to Nick Harbour that went for 47. But, there were some wide open, easy, obvious throws that, for whatever reason, he just was overthrowing, underthrowing, throwing at guys' feet, throwing 10 feet over their head. It was baffling to watch.
It was a tough watch. I mean, some of the throws he was missing on are just like come on, you gotta hit that throw. It's right there, plays open. A lot of times it was like that on Saturday. It's disappointing because it's game 9 of the season and that's what's going on. Yeah, it just was inexcusable and obviously was a big reason why South Carolina was not able to pick up the win on the road in Oxford. John has been hanging on the AAA Heating Air phone line.
Trend really starting in that Illinois game, and I'm glad y'all brought that up. I didn't think anybody was going to bring it up, but it had to be obvious that there was definitely a downplaying of Lenoris. And I have to say, I thought Lenoris was going to take us to the promised land. I really did. I've been so high on him. It's crazy. My next point is that, Shane exhibits loyalty to a fault. He waits too long to basically pull the plug, essentially. I would have pulled the plug, and I hate to even talk about this, Mike Schuler, because he's cost us our season. I'm going to go out and on a limb and say he cost us a beautiful season, and he's the big reason for it, if not the reason. But anyway, Shane demonstrates loyalty to a fault. He waits too late to pull the plug. Again, I would have pulled the plug on Schuler 3 games ago, probably at the LSU game. Also, talking about Clayton White, I mean, I don't know why everyone's so high on Clayton White. I mean, we've been giving up 30 points a game, essentially, against, good ball clubs. 38, 34, 28, whatever. Even if our offense had scored, it would have been hard to overcome giving up that many points from the defense. Anyway, it's a season lost. We had a great opportunity. We've got great players. We haven't utilized them properly. And again, that goes back to the offensive coordinator. And also, I heard that interview with Mr. Donati. And I'm telling you, I read between the lines, and I'm telling you, he is not happy. And he doesn't think that the NIL is the fault. He mentioned other teams have turned it around in 1 year. Mm-hmm. And I heard that interview, and I'm just saying, I think Shane's decision to get rid of Schuler did start with Donati. And I think he's on the hot seat. I'll be honest with you. He's sort of, been given a bit of a warning, mm-hmm. I think.
Yeah.
And anyway, the season lost, man, and I'm sick about it.
No, man.
I really thought we could have gone places, man. I'm telling you.
I completely understand. Again, good points there, John. AAA Heating and Air phone lines at 803-404-6100. And I do think, talking about his point on Donati there, I don't think it's a coincidence that Coach Beamer in 4 seasons had never made an in-season staff change. And now, the first year that Jeremiah Donati is your athletic director, he's made 2 in the span of a month. I think there is some pressure from the top, like, hey, we got to get this thing rolling here, man. And if you need to make some moves, make some moves. Like, I do think there is something to that with Donati being at the helm and not sitting around and waiting for things to happen, being more about the action.
Yeah, no, totally. And I do think he is right about one thing, that caller there, about there is pressure now on Shane, because if this hire does not go well with the OC, and honestly, keep in mind, there's still 3 games left to go in the year. Like, if South Carolina does not win another game the rest of the year, we think they're going to be Coastal, but I don't know. Coastal's playing some good football right now for a Sun Belt team. I mean, if South Carolina is not able to win another game the rest of the year, that I think Shane's going to be back, but it would be interesting to see what happens.
John brought up an interesting point in terms, of the defense and how this all factors in to the season, because I want to look at Shula's numbers as the offensive coordinator, and let's debate on where this team could be with an average offense. It's the Extra Point. It's our head and Jack Beltry along with you here on your Reaction Monday. Let us know your thoughts. 803-404-6100 here on your Monday on the Game. right, welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Belcher along with you here on your Reaction Monday on the game, as we're really mainly breaking down the firing of offense coordinator Mike Shula after Carolina suffers another loss 30-14 to Ole Miss on Saturday to drop 3-6 on the year, as unfortunately the football season has not gone the way that we wanted it to. Basketball is getting started tonight. Women's basketball in action is to take on Grand Canyon. Of course, Winston Gandy, former Don Staley assistant, coaching that Grand Canyon team. Tip off for that at 7 o'clock, which you can listen to right here on the game. Then tomorrow night, men's basketball gets its season rolling with North Carolina A&T over at Colonial Life Arena. Tip off for that also at 7 o'clock, with pregame for both starting at 6:30, all right here on the game. I want to go back to the point that John made a minute ago in reference to the defense and Clayton White and all that kind of stuff. But first, Jack, let me present to you some numbers. You were the first one, by the way, that presented the idea of the stats to Shane Beamer after what was that, after the Kentucky game? What game was that where you brought up where they sat in the SEC statistically?
Twice. It was Vandy, and then it was like LSU or something like that. It was twice.
And I know after the Vandy game, Beamer made the point of, well, not everybody's played the same level of competition. Those numbers will even out and all that kind of stuff. Well, they haven't. And I'm not looking at this just from an SEC standpoint because, no surprise, they're towards the bottom in just about every category. This is nationally, and these are just the ones that are egregiously, glaringly bad. Scoring, you're 119th. Rushing, you're 128th. Passing, you're 104th. Total, you're 131st. Total first downs, you're 124th. Sacks allowed, you're 134th. Third downs, you're 127th. And red zone trips, you're 131st. Again, they had never scored more than 22 points in a single game, which happened against Alabama a couple weeks ago. And, of course, the stat that popped up on the screen Saturday, they're all aware of now, no games over 350 yards. And they're the only FBS team this entire year to have that. And as we get set to go into game number 10, you're the only one that's not eclipsed 350 yards of offense.
I mean, you just laid it out. It's not good enough. It's plain and simple as that, and it's why a change was made. And I believe that comment initially was about the defense from the caller.
Yes.
I get it. Like, the defense is far from the problem with this team right now, but you have to score points to win games. I mean, the criticism, it should be on. Look, let's not get it twisted. Gave up a ton of rushing yards on Saturday, but gave you a chance to stay in that ball game going into the fourth quarter. It doesn't help when you get a muff punt or you have a muff punt and you give up a field goal, and then you turn over on downs near midfield. I mean, the defense was put into some pretty tough situations, I would say.
Yeah, and that's my thing to the point that John was trying to make there. Yes, statistically, South Carolina's defense is not phenomenal. Certainly a far cry away from what it was a year ago, but they've done enough to keep you in most of these games that you lost, the two exceptions being Vanderbilt and Oklahoma. And even Oklahoma, it wasn't a two-score game until midway through the third quarter. You look at Missouri, you're, again, only down one score. You had a lead in the fourth quarter, going into the fourth quarter. You're only down one score multiple times in the fourth quarter. The offense just couldn't end up doing anything. You have the lead on Alabama in the fourth quarter, and then the offense obviously fumbles the ball after Alabama ties the game. You were only down by a score in the fourth quarter of this one on Saturday, and let that one get away from you. And we've heard, we say this so much, when it comes to defense, they can get tired out pretty easily. And the more you're putting them on the field, the more you're going 3 and out, the more you're turning the ball over, the more exhausted that defense is going to be, to where they eventually have a breaking point where they're not going to be as efficient towards the end of the game. And again, you're losing the time possession battle. You're getting outdone on total plays. The offense isn't doing enough to give defense a reprieve. And again, I'm not saying that if this offense, was this offense is the only reason for the defense to have the struggles that it's had this year at times. But if you had a somewhat competent offense, if I took all those statistical categories that I just laid out to you that Carolina is towards the bottom of the country in, and you were just average in all those, which average, when you talk about 136 teams in FBS, is somewhere around 60 to 65 to 70. So if you told me in all those categories, and instead of being in the hundreds, Carolina was like 68th, then I tell you, okay, they probably win a couple more of those games because the defense did enough Again, not a phenomenal job, but did enough to at least keep you in that, where if your offense goes down there and gets a couple more touchdowns, then you probably win some more of those games.
You definitely do. I mean, look, you need to play complementary football, and you're not getting that right now at all. So, I mean, you gotta find a way to be better, and it's tough right now because I'm sure the defense is frustrated with themselves, but it's also like, hey, we're doing what we can. The offense is not giving us a chance to win. I mean, 14 points for an offense is not going to be enough in the SEC. Let's be honest.
And I think Clayton White still has a lot of good grace from people in terms of what the defense was a year ago, where I still think with how many jobs are getting open, there's a realistic chance that he could possibly go take a job. Maybe it's not like in Auburn or a Florida, but especially with as many like G5 head coaches that are probably going to get snatched for some of those jobs, I can very much see Clayton White ending up at a Tulane or a South Florida or a UTSA or one of those jobs if they become open. I don't know if he's interested or not, but he's going to be a candidate for some of these jobs for sure.
No, he will for sure.
Yeah, so that's you could be looking at hiring 2 coordinators this offseason, which that in and of itself is his own kind of mess that we'll navigate as it goes. But again, going back to our main point, Beamer's got to nail this. The Beamer cannot get this hire wrong because, again, he's going to feel pressure like he's never felt going into year number 6 in 2026.
Oh, yeah. I mean, totally. I mean, there's a lot of pressure on him right now, I would say, to end this season on a high note. And South Carolina is definitely going to need to find a way to do that because the pressure is certainly on.
We'll squeeze in another call here. Hal's been waiting on the AAA Heating and Air phone lines. Hal, appreciate your call. What's on your mind?
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking my call. I agree with the previous caller that I'm real frustrated that Beamer took so long to make this decision because now we have 3 games left, have to win all 3 to make a bowl, and it's very unlikely we can beat Texas A&M at their place. If he'd have done this 3 or 4 games ago, or at least demoted and started calling plays himself, then maybe we would have had a chance to win some of these games that were fairly close in the fourth quarter, including Alabama, where we were ahead by 8 points with about 3 minutes to go. So very frustrating. I feel like this season's kind of lost. But I wanted to make a couple of points otherwise. I've been doing this for a long time. A lot of people have, but I've been going to games for 50 years, seen a lot. And we went to the bowl game, and my first impression was Illinois had a great plan to substitute late in the cycle, and we would change personnel, and they would go onto the field very, very slowly. We ended up burning timeouts, things like that. And an in-game, a good offensive coordinator at that time, I think, would have quit subbing and just gone with a tempo approach. They could not have subbed. We would have controlled that strategy and taking care of business and been able to run our offense. We never adjusted to that. We kept subbing players, allowing them to sub, and that to me was just a major red flag the very first game of the year. It looked like they didn't want Sellers to run as much. Then that transferred into this season. I think everybody that watches and pays attention, it was clear that Sellers just wasn't the same guy and didn't have the same approach this year with him. I think finally, after enough, Beamer forced the issue and said, hey, we can't run the zone read into the line to start every possession. We've got to start throwing. We tried to do some of that, but unfortunately, I think in addition, they had a major miss on the offensive line,
right?
And the interior guys, they just unfortunately didn't reload with that in the portal, and we just didn't get the personnel we needed. The other thing, I'll make a quick comment and then I'll be done.
We got like 20 seconds here. Hal, you got to make it quick, okay?
Okay. Special teams, the ball hit the ground 4 times on punts in the Alabama game. I don't understand that. We've kicked the ball out of bounds. We've had several fake punts that didn't work.
Right.
It's just been a difficult special team era this year. So, anyway, thanks for taking my call. Appreciate it.
Absolutely appreciate it there, and we'll hit some of those points on the other side as we continue on with Reaction Monday. Again, 803-404-6100 as the Extra Point rolls along here on the game.
Everyone knows that AAA Heating and Air has the best HVAC replacement options in the Midlands with their guaranteed financing, no payments or interest for 12 months, and a 15-year parts and labor warranty. They're hard to beat when you need a new system. But did you know they also have great deals for repairs? That's right. If your system is broken and you're strapped for cash, AAA Heating and Air can help. They'll get your repairs done with payment options for up to 12 months and also no credit check required. That's right. So if you are the homeowner, all you need is a valid bank account. That's it. That's all you need. So don't wait. Call AAA Heating and Air today and get your comfort back on track. AAA Heating and Air, comfort you can trust.
Was that basically the 2-minute offense?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, pretty disappointing 3 plays right there, Jack. We get the ball, we get a turnover, we're in 2-minute mode, and went nowhere. That was a great opportunity right there that we squandered.
Were there any thoughts of maybe taking a timeout there, especially on 3rd and 1 in that situation?
3rd and 1.
3rd and 1, right before you guys went 3 and out on that sequence. Was there any thought with time ticking down of maybe taking a timeout just to think of what play you guys wanted to run next there?
Off the top of my head, I don't think so. I mean, we needed to work with a little bit more urgency there. There's no question about it. But I think 3rd down it is what it is. I think we certainly needed to be better on 1st and 2nd down.
Welcome back in. Extra Point. Tyler had Jack Veltri. Reaction Monday here on the game. Rightfully so. We focused most of the morning on the Mike Shula firing and what the future of South Carolina's offense is going to be. But I can't let this moment at the end of the first half go, because part of it is on Mike Shula. Part of it's also on Shane Beamer. And what he's alluding to there in the question timeouts, really, really needing an opportunity to score before halftime, where you could have potentially doubled up, got the 2 for none, and maybe made this a little bit more of a ball game. They did not snap the ball on that 3rd down until 38 seconds left in the 2nd quarter. They obviously didn't end up materializing anything as the North Stars scrambled there, and they ended up having to punt. And then they proceeded to call the timeout after Ole Miss ran the ball on 1st down. Again, the play calling was not good there from a Shula standpoint. But Beamer, what are you doing, man? You have 3 timeouts. You can't take them in the locker room. What are we doing?
The decision-making there was, sorry to be frank here, but it was just straight up stupid. I mean, I just did not understand it there, especially when you call the timeout afterwards. I'm just sitting in the press box. I'm like, what on earth are you guys doing? I mean, what, you think you're getting the ball back again with like 10 seconds left? Like, what are we talking about here? It's just such a silly thing that they did in that situation. And I mean, I don't know. We've seen Shane use timeouts before to keep drives going and give the offense a chance to reset. And I mean, you needed points going into the half there, because guess what? You get the ball back to start the second half, and who knows? Maybe you get a field goal and then you get a touchdown to tie the game. I mean, you don't know what can happen. And it's just that felt like putting up the white flag for a second there. I mean, just a really head-scratching sequence.
And again, as Beamer said, there did need to be more urgency, and the play calling could have been different. But like here's the thing: there are so many situations, and unfortunately, it feels like it's happened this year mainly, where Beamer will explain something about how something went down and how this went wrong or that went wrong, and I keep coming away from saying like, bro, you're the head coach. You have presiding power over every single person. You can call the timeout. You're the one that calls the timeout. Right? Like, you're the only one that has the power to do that on that coaching staff, where you can see, okay, the ball gets spotted at 1:02 left. If they're not set and ready to run a play within the next 6 seconds, call a timeout. Then you're at, 55 seconds or something like that. Get everything organized. Get everything together. Have the right 3rd down play call in there instead of wasting another 24 seconds before you snap the ball, only to punt the ball back away to Ole Miss. It's like, you have the power to do this. Why don't you in that situation?
Because, Tyler, I don't think we're ready to admit it, but the coaching is bad on this team. It's bad. Now, I'm not saying it's just Shane. I think Shane's a good coach, but on Saturday, I think the coaching was awful. I really do. I just don't think all the penalties, the undisciplinedness. And it's not even just that. It's just also like just watching before and after the game. I mean, you got guys that are just very like, I don't know what the right word to put it is, but when you got the Ole Miss fans like jawing at you and stuff, and you're talking back to them and stuff, and kind of just like letting it get under your skin. I mean that's a problem right there, in my opinion at least. I mean, I saw that a few times during that game on Saturday, where it just totally looked like they were just undisciplined out there. And yeah, in that situation, it's just a bad sequence for Shane Beamer, and he's got to be better. It's plain and simple.
Yeah, and again, neither one of us have coached at the high school, college, or pro ranks. But I'm watching this game on TV at our Watch Party O'Hara's, which, by the way, shout out to everybody that came out and suffered through that game with me. Appreciate all you guys as always. I'm sitting there like, and it's not just me, multiple people like timeout, 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 timeout. Well, why are you not calling timeout? Like, if the average fan, if the average media person can look at that situation, if I handed a 10-year-old a controller with College Football 26, and that's the exact situation, what are they going to do? They're going to call timeout to, if nothing else, get everything under control, figure out the right play, and run it. And maybe you don't convert it. I think maybe you don't convert it, and maybe you give Ole Miss more time to go down the field. Maybe that was the thought process. I don't know. But in terms of being aggressive, which when you're a 3-5 team at that point in time with your back up against the wall in terms of just trying to get to a bowl game, you got to be aggressive. And you have to utilize everything at your disposal to be successful. And at that point in time, you had 3 timeouts and you used none of them in that situation.
Just head scratching. It's all you could say. You gotta be better. Plain easy as that.
Yeah, it's just there's a lot of things that went wrong in that game on Saturday, but that was the one that really stuck out to me that I just couldn't figure out. And again, he hadn't seen the tape at that point in time, but again, All right, welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Belcher along with you here on your Reaction Monday. Wrapping up the hour. Again, we focused most of today on Mike Shula and some of the things that went wrong on Saturday. We'll get into everything that happened in week number 10 of college football and around sports. A little bit more coming up tomorrow when we have more time. But again, news of the day was just everything focused on Mike Shula. So we spent most of the time focusing on that. In the last segment, though, Jack, we did talk about decision-making from the coaches stemming from the gaffe at the end of the first half where Carolina did not utilize any of their timeouts, went 3-and-out, punted it back to Ole Miss, and then burned a timeout when they ran the ball on the first play there. Another moment here that Nameless Texter brings up and says, why did he call the challenge? It was clear that he caught the ball. And everything else, I'd forgotten about this, so thank you for bringing this up because I did want to talk about this. This was the first defensive drive of the second half where Harbor had gotten the long touchdown that made it a 3-point game at that point in time. Ole Miss had converted their first third down of the game. They didn't convert a third down in the entire first half, get their first third down conversion. I think it was an over middle play. I forget which receiver it was, but it looked like a pretty ordinary routine catch over the middle. And then Beamer threw a challenge, and they went to commercial. If you're watching the TV copy of this, Jack, they went to commercial, so they didn't really replay it a bunch of times, but I think everybody watching it was like, no, he caught that ball. I'm not sure what they saw or what they're looking at. And again, there's somebody that is supposed to buzz in and tell Coach Beamer, hey, we see something here, throw the challenge flag out. So I don't know what they saw or what they thought they saw on that would have warranted a challenge, but it ended up being a wasted timeout at that point in time because, again, it was pretty clear that he caught the ball, and from what they said when they came back on TV, they didn't really have to take a whole lot of time to look at it.
And they had to burn another timeout, if I'm not mistaken, pretty early on in that second half, if memory serves me correctly.
So they had to burn the timeout right before Harbor's touchdown because the play clock was running down. And that's when Coach Beamer was losing his mind on the headset, assuming he was talking to Mike Shula, because I guess they didn't get the play in, didn't get set right. So two drives into the second half, you had already burned 2 of your timeouts.
Not good. Not good. I didn't understand challenging it. I mean, I know it's tough from the field to make that call. I mean, you got to make a judgment call in that situation. But, I mean, I don't know. I thought that was a strange decision there.
Yeah, but again, just kind of encapsulates the entire day as some head-scratching decisions being made and just quite frankly getting outplayed, getting out-coached as well. I mean, here's the thing for me. For as good as Carolina is when it comes to special teams, it feels that much more embarrassing when another team gets a fake playoff on you. You know what I mean? That opening fake punt that Ole Miss ran to not even have, because they got leverage, right? There was nobody in the vicinity of where that punter ran for the first down. Like, those are the kind of things you're like, man, as a special teams guru, aren't you supposed to catch those kind of things?
And I asked Shane about that after that game, and I think what his response was that they weren't ready for it. And he kind of described it in that it wasn't so much a fake punt, but rather a rugby-style kick where they kind of just...
After the game, apparently his hand had gone numb from the prior play. Now, I don't know if he communicated that to somebody on the staff or he just went out there, you know, on the adrenaline or anything alone, but I would think that would have contributed to why he wasn't able to field that ball cleanly.
I asked him about that, and he had a wrap on his hand, not like a club or anything.
Yeah,
like a tape wrap on his hand, and he kind of explained that it happened like a few plays before. And I asked him, well, was there any discussion of you going back out there? It was kind of basically what you said about the adrenaline and whatnot, and like just wanting to be out there for the team.
I mean, but that's a situation where, as a player, you got to understand if you're not at your best, you're potentially hurting your team there. So you gotta say, hey, you know, my hand ain't feeling right. Let's get somebody else out there, because usually it is Vakari Swain returning punts. But as Beamer explained after the game, that was a punt safe call, which is always going to be Jalen Kilgore fielding those. But in that situation, it's like, hey, let's get Swain out there or somebody that has feeling in both their hands. You know, and again, that may just been on Kilgore for not communicating it, but one of many things that led to issues in this game and why they ultimately lost.
Totally. I mean, I get it. They were in punt safe, and Vakari was good. I mean, he I asked Shane. He said he was good. to go out there and catch punts, even with the hand injury. So it's just so much went wrong in that game that we're now just bringing up, and you talk about it, it's like you see why they lost by 2 touchdowns.
And I was incorrect. That was actually early third quarter because that was on the same drive that they called that challenge that didn't make a whole lot of sense. So just a rough sequence of plays there for Carolina early on in the second half.
Just an encapsulation of how the day went.
Yeah, it's frustrating all around. And again, we don't like to be negative here, but when the team is not giving us a lot of positive things to talk about, we can't help but talk about the information that's presented. And unfortunately, it was another rough game. And by the way, how was Tupelo? I didn't even ask you how Tupelo was on Friday night.
Actually, not bad. I mean, it was the bare bones driving into, Mississippi. There was nothing there, and then you get to Tupelo, and you're like, wow, this is like an actual town. Like, they got stuff here, and went to go check out some of the Elvis stuff on Saturday morning, the birthplace, the church he grew up going to. I mean, a lot of cool stuff out there in Tupelo. It was a good time.
How many Elvis impersonators did you see?
Actually, none. I don't remember seeing any because I went to one bar on Friday, and most of the people there were dressed as SpongeBob characters.
Oh, okay. Well, that's different. But
Yeah,
well, okay. Well, at least you had a unique experience to some degree outside of the football game being played.
That was a good time out there. I would recommend going on that trip if anyone's ever interested.
I can't even remember what time the next trip out there is in the next handful of years. But the beauty of the new schedule is you'll get to go there, and they get to come here every 4-year cycle. So that's cool.
I'm looking forward to it.
All right, we'll talk about the other things that happen around college football in week number 10 coming up tomorrow, but we'll continue on with the discussion around Mike Shula and the loss to Ole Miss as we get into the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs coming up next on Your Reaction Monday on the Game. 11 o'clock on your Monday morning. Welcome in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler Head, Wes Mitchell, Chris Clark, along with you here. We're in the month of November. And, on Saturday night, I thought we were going to be talking mainly about the 30-14 loss for South Carolina at the hands of the number 7 Ole Miss Rebels that dropped into 3-6 on the year, where now their backs up against the wall, needing to win the next 3 straight just to make a bowl game. But then we got that news on Sunday that Mike Shula had been relieved of his duties as offensive coordinator, and that has already dominated the discussion so far this morning. And we'll unpack all that over the course of the next hour. But Chris, how was the Grove? Jack told me he saw you out there. What was your experience like? Give us the scouting report.
I saw Jack Veltri and our great photographer, Katie, out there in the Grove. And obviously people everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you've never been, you can't say, come on over. We're at the blue tent. Like, there are tents.
There's 10,000 blue tents.
There's 10,000 blue tents. There's some red sprinkled in, some white. There's people everywhere. And somehow I ran into those guys before the game. They were probably laughing at me. I was carrying a bucket of chicken.
Okay.
Gas station chicken, which you have to get.
From the gas station you were staying at?
Yeah. Different one. But nonetheless, from the gas station, it was tremendous.
Well, listen, gas station fried chicken in Mississippi is probably some of the best you can have, right?
It was phenomenal. Chicken tenders.
That checks out.
But yeah, I mean, great environment. Lots of Gamecocks down there. Had a chance to go visit with some folks I hadn't seen in a while. And, great environment. Cold in the stadium. Man, it got cold. It's one of those where you could have worn shorts during the day, but cold at night. The wind started whipping up, so it's pretty cold, but had a chance to sit in the Gamecock session, so there were a lot of fans up there, having a big time, pretty engaged early. Obviously, the game didn't go how anybody wanted, but if you've never been to Oxford, it's a really fun trip. I mean, it's a kind of a must-do, I think.
I didn't go, Tyler, so I can't.
I didn't know if you had any follow-up questions.
The comment on my trip that he didn't go on.
Chicken. What was the rating?
Ooh, I mean, I think it was like an 8.
Was that the best part of your whole day then? The chicken?
No, it wasn't. We got to visit and with some people, and it was a really good time. I mean, you're there and you're like, this is the SEC.
Okay,
like it's just. It is it, so it's a different type of environment than South Carolina. Obviously, there's great environment here for tailgating, but totally different. And then, the game started, unfolded, and I know we'll get into that. I have a feeling, guys, we're going to spend most of our time talking about, we could have come out of this game talking about another game where a lot of missed opportunities, offensive struggles, yet a game that was certainly in question in the fourth quarter once again, right? And that was kind of our big theme was, hey, you got to get this one to the fourth quarter. You didn't last year against Ole Miss. You've gotten a couple games into the fourth quarter this year, more than a couple, 3 games. Can you go finish one of those? And they got it to the fourth quarter, didn't finish. The offense was obviously, I think, the biggest reason why, the biggest talking point. But the difference obviously is we're talking about that still as a theme, but now we're talking about that being kind of the final straw in the Mike Shula era.
Outside of that, there were some mismanaged moments, some bad play calls, and pretty much everything in between that just kind of summed up what the Shula era of offensive coordinator has been, unfortunately.
Yeah, guys, I thought it was kind of a microcosm of what we've seen for the last, I would say, 9, maybe 10 if you throw in the bowl game, 2 games. And It is frustrating, I'm sure, for the guys, and I thought this was just kind of a matter of sample size. And so here's the thing. To me, after the game on Saturday, it was pretty much apparent, and I know some people have been beating this drum for some time. I try to give benefits of the doubt. I think coaches in general, no matter how quickly you as a fan think, hey, it's time to pull the plug, you can't do, this guy's out, you have to at least give a coach an opportunity to go out there and prove people wrong or prove people right. And, I think early on in the year, you're going, hey, we've seen offenses at South Carolina struggle and then just put it together. We know what Lenora Sellers can do. This offensive line can possibly eventually gel together. You made the move to get rid of Lonnie Teasley. I believe partially because that's coming off of that LSU game where South Carolina was able to run the football, was able to establish the run. And coming off a few weeks from the Missouri game where you threw the ball all over the place. So I think the thought was, hey, if you blow the thing up, I don't want to say that means you're punting on the season, but for the most part, it doesn't always work out if you just blow up the offense. So I think Beamer was very hopeful that what was still a pretty drastic move just to get rid of your O-line coach. We haven't seen him do that before in the middle of the season, hoping that would improve the O-line play and spark the offense. Help them. How many times did this offense have the ball on the 40, 35, 30-yard line or inside the 20 during the first half of the year? And you're going, man, if they could just execute a little bit better once they start getting closer to the opponent's end zone, it'd be a different story. So I believe Beamer was hopeful that a tweak would help push them over the top. Well, it just hasn't happened. It just hasn't worked. And I think we kind of knew after Saturday a change is going to be made. The only question was going to be, is it going to be after the year or is it going to be right now? Beamer obviously chose right now. And, frankly, it just literally has not worked. The production has not been good enough. Stats in a small sample size don't really mean a whole heck of a lot. The longer that goes, the more you're going last in the SEC or second to last in the SEC in pretty much all the major offensive categories. And Beamer, frankly, just kind of did what he had to do, I think.
Yeah, I think as a bigger picture, couple bigger picture general points here. If you were among the people who after 3 games, or if you're taking like last year's bowl game, which was a different set of circumstances, but nonetheless, if you took the bowl game and, the first 3 games of this year and said, this isn't working and it's not going to work, like you were right at this point because we've obviously now seen once you extended the sample size, it did not work. Obviously, I still would argue that you can't in any situation just say it's been 3 games, let's pull the plug. Like, that's not a great practice as a head coach, You look at last year 2 of Dowell Loggins, yes. But last year, through about halfway through the season or a few games through the season, it was, Lenore sitting the guy, pull the plug on Dowell, and then they go off and they score some points, and they end up being one of the best teams in the SEC in conference play offensively, which they were. I mean, that's just a fact. And they won 6 games to end the season, and they almost made the playoff, right? So the point is, things can get better. They can also get worse. If they had started this year hot offensively, you don't need to sit there and say, oh, everything's great. We're going to run the table. It can always get worse, right? What you do have now is an expanded sample size. And, Shane Beamer's touched on this a few times throughout the season. Through 3 games, it was on his radar. He was concerned, but it wasn't, we need to blow this thing up. Remember, 6 games in, halfway point. All right, now I'm more alarmed. It is what it is. He made another change. Now you're 3/4 of the way through the season, make another change, which is not very typical. And that's the second point I was going to make real quick. Like, if you're out there wondering, does Beamer understand, like, the gravity of this situation? I think he quite obviously does. You don't typically see – sometimes you see, like, an OC and O-line coach go at the same time in terms of being dismissed. You don't typically see one move and then another move, like, a few weeks later. So I think that speaks to the urgency of it, which it is urgent to get this fixed both in the short term but obviously in the long term. And I think Beamer said something very interesting last night during his teleconference, and that is this isn't just a 2025 decision. It's not just a this season thing. He went back to, hey, for several years now, we have been not consistent enough offensively. And that's something fans talk about a lot, rightfully so. Not being able to run the ball well except for last season. They were pretty good running football last year, but that was kind of an outlier. Too many sacks. Too many, games where you're just not generating much of anything offensively on the scoreboard. Too many tackles for loss and negative plays. Like, those things have been themes. And so you can tell that is on Beamer's mind, not just, hey, I'm making a move because we feel like we need to this season. It's more of he kept using the word elevate. How can we take what we're doing on offense in total to the next level? And that's what the job is going to be, obviously, from here on out when you hire a new offensive coordinator and, we presume, new O-line coach.
Yeah, and that's going to be your third different offensive coordinator in the past 3 seasons, and again, the Dow Loggins thing's because he went and took a job, but still, you don't like to have that much turnover, that many new guys coming in and bringing in whatever philosophies they have on offense and whatever different type of offense that could be coming in, because there's a lot of people that rightfully so want to see something done differently on offense than the traditional pro style type of NFL type of offense that Beamer's been running here in his time as head coach. And again, we got a lot of time to get into the coordinator coaching search and all that kind of stuff as time goes along, because obviously those decisions aren't going to be made until the season is over and done with here in a couple weeks. But quite frankly, is it understating that this is the biggest hire of Beamer's entire time here at Carolina? Because you've moved on from your offensive line coach, moved on from your offensive coordinator. If next year goes sideways again, well, they're going to be looking at you and your job next. So you have to make this hire right to get things back on track.
Yeah, Beamer was asked about that yesterday, and it's a fact. It is the most important hire of his tenure to this point. Early on, you're kind of in the honeymoon, your first year head coach as well. Not that people are ever really, truly like that patient, right? But there is at least some patience and there's some understanding. Hey, you don't have the players yet. You don't have your roster yet. And, I think one thing that, maybe we'll get into this at some point, you have some of your guys, like you have Lenora Sellers, a Heisman favorite coming back, and the offense just has not been what anybody expected. So I think that was another one of the issues that kind of, got Shula pushed out the door. Is just that it'd be one thing if you were looking at the quarterback room and being like, man, he really doesn't have much talent to work with here. In this case, he absolutely did. South Carolina absolutely does. So, yeah, I think if you're Beamer, man, you know how this works. Like, this is how the college football cycles go. There's about a 4 or 5 year cycle where people start to look at the big picture, but at the same time, if you're not here's the thing, if you're not kind of just winning at the end of that kind of 4 or 5 year cycle, people start to get very impatient, and people, it seems like, have already kind of forgotten what the team did last year and aren't really giving him credit for that anymore. So I think here's the thing. Can you keep things rolling on defense and find somebody? Beamer used the word elevate. Can you find somebody that can come in and quickly elevate the offense? Like the overall, the culture is good. You've got a guy in Clayton White who probably is going to be, I would think, coveted for head coaching jobs at some point, but you've kept some continuity there. Can you keep the continuity on defense while elevating the offense? And as we've seen, the difference in this year and the difference in winning close games is a just very, very tight margin.
A lot to unpack from the end of the Mike Shula era as we continue on with the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs and your Reaction Monday. Let us know your thoughts, 803-404-6100 here on The Game.
Make sure you're up to date so things are running well, and make sure you're not overpaying each month. May be time to make the jump to fiber internet. Integrated Media can recommend, sell, and install the Wi-Fi equipment that you need to update your home. 803-948-8327. If you're on the outskirts of the Midlands with no internet available, ask Integrated Media about Starlink as an option for your home. IntegratedMediaInc.com to learn more.
Welcome back in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West and Chris here near Reaction Monday. Normally be breaking down the loss itself, 30-14 for South Carolina on the road against number 7 Ole Miss. But, of course, the story of Mike Shula being relieved of his play calling duties yesterday, obviously dominating the headlines today. And let's kind of rewind this. Let's go back to the very beginning. And, Wes, I thought you made some really good points in your article on Gamecock Central yesterday of kind of putting in perspective where we started with this and where we're at now, because when Shula was brought in last year as the offensive assistant that kind of turned into quarterback coach, it was widely praised. Hey, here's a guy that's a former head coach, former offensive coordinator in the NFL. He's going to work directly with Lenore Sellers, and it's going to be great. And a lot of people contributed to the success this team had offensively and the emergence of Lenore Sellers to Mike Shula's influence on him inside the building last year. So when Dow Loggins moved on to Appalachian State, made perfect sense to make him the offensive coordinator. And yeah, the bowl game wasn't as good as we thought it was going to be, but there were a lot of factors at play there. And through the first couple games of the season, wasn't great. But again, Ben Beamer especially is a coach that's very patient. He gives guys a lot of leash when it comes to proving themselves before he starts making staff changes. And we were all just kind of waiting for it to click, and unfortunately it never did. But a year ago, if you would have told people, hey, Shula's going to be your offensive coordinator next year.
Money fresh, and I think Beamer kind of, as we've seen, guys, he values continuity. So I think sort of you already have a guy who is seemingly connected with LaNorris Sellers. If you bring in a completely different coach, a completely different OC, he maybe he probably wants to bring in his own guy, like his own top assistant. So that probably means, I don't know, does Shula just follow logins to app and like you're completely starting over? You saw, and again, I get it just did not work out. At the time, though, you have a guy who has a good connection with LaNorris, has helped him quite a bit, called plays for Cam Newton in the NFL in an MVP year. So I think, it's a situation where it wasn't a guarantee, obviously, but you kind of thought, well, Mike Shula will figure this thing out, right? Like, he's been around enough ball his entire life with a quarterback like Sellers, with that prior connection. He's seen every single day what 16 can do. He's going to figure this thing out. And, I think Beamer just did not want to start over with the way they finished the season. And it clearly has not worked out. You'll have to own and live with that decision. And people can say, well, it was a bad decision in the first place. But I think there were a lot of good reasons for making the decision. It just simply has not worked out.
Yeah, you can go back and reverse engineer if you want. Depends on your view. Hey, here's why this would work. Here's why this wouldn't work. A lot of the people who didn't like the hire said this isn't going to work, said, hey, go out and get somebody. Hey, let's go ahead and take this thing to the next level. Yeah, finished well last year. We know that. You kind of had the bowl game maybe in the back of your mind. Even though that, maybe that's an outlier. Obviously, as we said, the circumstances were different. Situation was different. It's different than turning over the keys to a guy for an entire offseason, an entire season. Maybe you said, hey, Shula hasn't called the game in a while. Like, he's obviously got OC experience in college. He's got OC experience in the NFL. But, hey, the last year I think that he called plays at the NFL level was, 2019. Okay. Yeah, totally. That might be a reason. Hey, with the success that you had and LaNorris Sellers going into a year where he's got a lot of deserved buzz, go out and hire a big-timer who's scoring a bunch of points at a college. That, fair point. But also, I agree with you, Wes. You could also see some reasons why it made sense. And we all know that LaNorris Sellers progressed from game 1 to game 12 last year. We all saw that rise. And a lot of people in that building, publicly and privately, credited Shula as being a big part of that. Now, obviously, the question is, or the fact is, that is different being a quarterback's coach than being the on-field quarterback's coach plus the guy that's drawing up the game plan, calling the plays on game day, helping the players execute. Like, that is a much different role. There were some reasons one way or another. Clearly, here we are. Hasn't worked out. There's a lot of reasons for that, and it's not – look, that's one thing I want to get across. It's not just Mike Shula. It's not just the offensive line. Like, there are a lot of things this offseason that I think Shane Beamer's going to be addressing just beyond the O-line situation, the OC situation. Every week, we're getting more and more data points in this kind of crazy college football world that we're in. And, winning is hard now, and winning requires big investment. Winning's expensive, so is losing very expensive. And so I think there's a lot that's going to be happening. It's going to be a critical offseason. But, of course, this is a really, really big hire in what's going to be Shane Beamer's 6th year in Columbia.
And Saturday, again, there was a lot of things that were kind of a microcosm for the Mike Shula experience as offensive coordinator. But Sellers easily had his worst game as a Gamecock on Saturday, just missing wide open guys, throwing over their head, throwing at their feet. taking sacks that he probably shouldn't have taken, which again has kind of been a theme throughout the entire year. And yes, some of that is on the execution of him going out there and actually physically doing it when he's on the field. But again, it goes back to the point of the regression from a development standpoint, where again, he was going in the right direction at the back half of last year, which is why he warranted all the hype going into this year. And it's just been a complete 180 in the wrong direction. The stats back that up. And if you watch him play on Saturday, you can say, yeah, this is not the same guy from a year ago. And again, when you're the offensive coordinator, that does end up falling on you at a point. And that is one of the many reasons why Shula is no longer the OC here.
Guys, that was the most uncomfortable we have seen Lenoris look since today, and be like, oh, he's just not that good of a quarterback, or he's just not that good of a passer. Guys, not that he was completely a finished product last year, but this guy was not just running over teams. Like, we watched him make throw after throw after throw last season, and you were going, man, if he can keep elevating from that, yeah, there's plenty of room to grow. Don't get me wrong. But this was not a guy who was completing 50% of his passes last year. He was third in the SEC in completion percentage. One of the two guys ahead of him is the quarterback of the New York Giants right now. So I think this whole idea, Sellers just isn't that good, it's not true at all. The ability is there. And I think if South Carolina can get 16 back for another year, and I do think long-term he needs another year in college, because I think this kid is as talented as they come still. The single biggest key for the new guy is to build this thing around the skill set of Lenoris Sellers. Let him develop as a quarterback, but while simultaneously letting him do the things that he does best and is most comfortable doing.
We'll get to some of your thoughts on the AAA Heating and Air phone lines coming up on the other side, so hang tight as the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs, rolls along here on the game.